Hey folks, Joko here. I'm doing a task one tonight it's a bar chart, and I love doing task ones. So please, if you're smart, you will practice your task ones as much as your task twos. I think the reason why 90% of you post task two is that you're convinced that task one is easy, and yes, it's easier, but a lot of you are doing it wrong because you've been told that there's a simple way to do it, a simple way to put it together. I have strong feelings about the task one, and it bothers me when people are getting the wrong information, or what I think is the wrong information, about how to approach task one. First of all, you need to pay attention to the difference in the marking criteria in the two tasks. In task one, it is task achievement. See here? I have it in pink. And you'll notice when you look at this, there's some similar words, but what jumps out at you? Covers all requirements, covers all requirements, covers all requirements, all requirements. What are the requirements of the task they're talking about? Well, it's very simple. In every task one, you have the same instructions. They're right here. Okay? This part, of course, what it shows is different, but you're always asked to do this. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons. Well, the requirements of the task can be understood to be the four verbs in this sentence. And let's look at them. Summarize means to take some information and make it shorter while still conveying the most important information. It's about describing as much of the data as you can, the important data, in as few words as possible. Let that guide your writing. Okay, selecting. You've already been told what to select. Just look for the highest and the lowest. Just look for the extremes when choosing your overview. This bugs me. And reporting accurately the main and making comparisons. This is where we often fall apart. If you don't do this, well, then you're not covering all the requirements. Okay? And if you don't select the right information, then you're not covering it, you're just addressing it. If your reporting is inaccurate, well, then you are addressing the reporting but not covering it. Anyway, so it's all in task achievement. It's in about doing these four things. I don't have time to do all those four things. Yes, you do. Aha, look, I can already see where this is going. What do we have? Tea and coffee consumption in 2015. Let's analyze the diagram first before we look at the essay. What do you notice? Okay, we've got a couple of tall towers here. They're tall, that's tall. All right, that's tall. Okay, we got little dinky ones down here, small ones. Hey, wait a minute, look at this. This might take some time. Australia, 3-to-1. Canada, 6-to-1. Look at that, it's a big difference. Not as big a difference, but it's almost twice. Big difference. America, big difference. So in 6 out of 7, what can you say about them? In 6 out of 7, there's a big difference between coffee and tea. Only in the UK is it the same. I think that's the main feature, that one beverage dominates the other. You can still talk about coffee, and then you can talk about tea, but let's see what our candidate wrote. Okay. The bar chart compares. Okay. Let's have a little talky guy.
The bar chart compares how much tea and coffee consumed by per person in 7 various countries in 2015. Overall, it is evident that the tea consumption in Turkey far exceeded the rest of the counties, while Canada had by far the highest amount of coffee consumption.
Okay, so we have in 2015. One thing in these charts, you need to use the passive voice. Grammar mistake here is, okay, did the tea and coffee consume people? No, the tea and coffee was consumed. Passive voice. People consumed coffee. Coffee and tea was consumed. How'd you do in your paraphrasing? Well, okay, compares how much tea and coffee. Okay, tea and coffee. Why not make it coffee and tea? Even little rearrangements of the words shows that you know how to paraphrase. Consumed. All right, good. That's not consumption. But again, the grammar error. By per person. Now, this word per is very important in task 1 because you often see percentages or you see things that are represented in per person, sometimes called per capita. The word per means by each. How many of this do we need per person or for each? By each or for each. So you can't combine it with by. I know you wanted to put by in there, but you missed the was consumed by each person or per person in 7 various countries in 2015. Do we need various? Nah, in various countries. But since you've identified the number 7, you don't need various. Just go away. Okay, here's your overview. Now you've put it with your first sentence. I always like to put the overview as a separate paragraph. The idea that there's a paragraph length that is too short, that a paragraph can be too short, that's a myth. No, that's not true. No such thing as. Anyway. Overall, it is evident that the tea consumption in Turkey far exceeded the rest of the typo county countries, while Canada had by far the highest amount of coffee consumption. Okay, let's take a look at that. First of all, are you talking about a trend? No, you're talking about a difference. Turkey and everybody else. All right? Consumption far exceeded the rest of the countries. Okay, yeah, I can see that. How about this, though? While Canada had by far the highest. Let's see. Canada, 6.2. America, 5. Is that by far? Be careful that you don't use the words that you've been told to use incorrectly. Okay? No. You could say that Canada and the United States had by far the greatest coffee consumption. Now, what else is interesting here? Now, why did I pick C and C? I forgot now. Okay, the highest amount of coffee. Now, I would recommend you use the word greatest, okay, instead of highest. And amount. Well, what does amount mean? Amount means the total amount, the total. How much coffee did Canada, not the people, but Canada, while Canada had by far. This is probably the most common error in task 1, and everyone needs to listen. And this error is quite simple. Did Canada consume the coffee? Of course not. A country can't consume coffee. The people who live there. I don't expect you to know how many people live in Canada. I mean, it's about 30 million people. Whereas in the United States, it's about 300 million people. So you got 10 times the number of people in the United States as Canada. Well, in Canada, in the U.S., average person drinks 5.5 kilograms of coffee per year. So 100 million, that's easy to figure, 550 million kilograms of coffee beans. Whereas Canada, 6 times 30, it's 180. America drank 4 times the amount of coffee that Canada did. Not per person, but the amount. So this not recognizing what the graph shows in terms of per person. So every Canadian person drank more coffee. Well, not everyone, but the average Canadian did, but not in total. It's not the highest amount. Oh, what's going on with this thing? Is this going to mess me up? Oh, yeah, it's reminding us what the colors mean. All right, now let's go on to the details. In Turkey, per person, can't use per person here. You have to say each person. Consume 5 kilograms of tea in 20. Each person? Even like everyone? No, per person consume. Now, the average person. It's the average per person. Okay? So followed by. And this is incoherent. That's why it's coherence. In Turkey, follow. All right, so the average Turkish person, the average Turk, consumed 5 kilograms, which was the most in the world, or in the most of the countries. This was followed by the United Kingdom. Followed is not a connector. It's an adjective. Stupid cat, hang on. Okay, let's calm down. It's very good that you can take the word consume and use it in different forms. But so far, in the first 2 paragraphs, 1, consume, 2, a form of consume, 3, 4, okay, 5, 6. 6 times you've used a form of the word consumption or consume. To show good lexical, you need to show that you know other words to say. How about drink? Okay. And okay, so into per person, so we know that's not true. Okay, followed by okay, and it's confusing. What followed? You say 3 things. 3 things have 3 figures, plural, of, and then again, this just becomes incoherent. 3 kg per person, roughly 2 kg, and just over 1 kg per person. Per person, roughly, what? How about 3, 2.5, and a little over 1 kg per person? Okay. Don't repeat these terms. You don't have to, respectively. In contrast, it is noticeable. That's one of these words that you've been taught to use, and it doesn't, it is noticeable. Really? That there were significantly lower amounts of tea consumption in the United States, Canada? Really? Okay, so New Zealand and Australia. Is that really? Okay, New Zealand. New Zealand drank this much tea. Australia drank this much tea. Wow, is that a significant difference? No, it's not. No, it's not. Is that a significant? No, it's not. So don't be so tied up in these words that you've been taught that you forget what reality is. Top the chart, far too informal. Typo, well under 7 kg per person in 2015. Why did you say well under to describe 6.2? Well under 7. Huh? And when you're talking about the highest, you want to avoid words that refer to like lower or under. How about just over 6 kg per person? The next highest consumption rate was recorded in the United States at about, followed by New Zealand with no need with there, just shy of 4 kg. Australia and the United Kingdom had the same coffee pattern why pattern? At 3 kg per person. The lowest amount of coffee consumption can be seen in Russia with more than 1 kg per person. Okay, now, you've reported some stuff that very inaccurately, and you've missed a lot of details that are very important. Let's look at this second paragraph here. Okay. Australia and United Kingdom had the same one. Sure enough, that's right. But is that main information or is that unnecessary detail? What is one bit of information that stands out, is different than everything else on this chart? There it is. Look at that. You're comparing coffee to coffee and coffee to coffee and tea to tea and coffee to tea, but never once do you compare coffee and tea. And here is a great example of something that's unusual. You might even say surprisingly. I hate that one. But there we have it. Okay, so strengths. You know a lot of words to describe figures. That's good. But the figures that you're choosing are inappropriately selected. Okay, here's a model essay.